What is the R7? Is it a fraud? Is it a new beginning? A modern reinterpretation? Or a new invention altogether? I struggled for days to make this review. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. You see, I didn't want to give you a cookie cutter YouTube review like so many other YouTubers who've hasted just to collect views. So I studied this bike. I wanted to know this bike. I had to learn this bike. Sometimes I hated this bike, but ultimately I loved this bike. I reveled in its strengths and accepted its weaknesses. How does it handle? Is it powerful enough, or is it lacking? Is the price point a great value, or is Yamaha committing highway robbery? You see, Yamaha said it's a superbike. But those who hate Yamaha for no longer making street-ready R6s claim that this is no superbike and that it's just another fancy marketing ploy. So tell me, who's telling the truth here? By the way, what is a superbike? Is a superbike only judged and defined by 4 cylinders and raw power on a nice frame? Or is there more to be desired of the definition? Does this more nimble package of the R7 combined with adjustable suspension and engineering prowess from one of the best companies in the world matter when that type of tech is brought to a twin cylinder? See, I answer these questions and more. Welcome to the SoCal Rider B Yamaha YZF R7 review. The modern R7 owes its success to the original OW02 R7 motorcycle created in the 1990s. It revolutionized the racing world with its superior performance, becoming a legend among riders. Released in the 1990s as a follow-up to the YZF R1 and the YZF R6, the OW02 R7 featured a newly developed engine with a compact 3-axis layout and titanium connecting rods. There is no doubt that this was designed to be a proper race bike. But with only 500 units sold worldwide, it became more of a collector's item than it was used for racing. Which is kind of sad because it was designed as a true race amalgamation bike with high-end equipment such as Öhling's upside-down front fork and rear suspension with the aim of providing special specs for a base machine specifically designed for superbike class racing. The Yamaha 750cc Super Sport bike was a revolutionary design, aiming to be lightweight, slim, and compact while still providing a powerful and exciting experience. It was designed to embody Yamaha's R DNA philosophy of redefining the super sport bike. Yamaha released their YZF R7 in 2021, which divided opinions as some people thought of it as a replacement for R6. While others compared it to the original OW02 R7 from the 90s. Online arguments ensued. Some people were outraged and triggered, and others had midlife crises and swore that they would never ride Yamaha again. Alright, well, maybe it wasn't that serious, but people were very upset to say the least. I, however, disagree with both of these arguments and propose that the R7 should be seen as its own breed of super sport bike. Not just a modern reinterpretation, but a modern reinvention. The new YZF R7 perfectly incorporates the R DNA and is a race amalgamation supersport in its own right. Say hello to the new YZF R7. Alright, let's talk about the specs on this R7. Starting with the cockpit, the R7 is equipped with a clip-on handlebar style and a newly designed triple clamp. The R7, we also going to get a 3.4 gallon tank cover with deep knee pockets and grooves that offers an extra chin space for tucking in and taking advantage of this new aerodynamic slim frame. And what really helps you do that is also this new seat design that offers the freedom to move those hips around like you on the dance floor. You know, move them backwards, forwards, side to side. Really creates an optimal sporty riding posture while still feeling stable on the bike. Definitely helpful for us big guys out there. Now we got that rear fairing. It incorporates the styling of the R6 and the R1. And this is just a style and design that looks really aggressive and sleek at the same time. I love it. The weight on this bike, you coming in at 414 pounds, and I do believe that's wet, fully lubed, full tank of gas, right? Lighter than the R6, right? Lighter than the R6, using a lightweight trellis frame paired with a rigid aluminum center brace. Yamaha claims that this contributes to increased chassis rigidity, and in my testing, the frame did feel stable throughout everything that I threw at it. The rear wheel is measuring 180/55/17. The front wheel is measuring 120/70/17. And this beautiful machine comes standard with a pair of Bridgestone Battle Axe Hypersport tires. In my opinion, they offer a great balance of longevity without really sacrificing on grip. Get into that in a little bit. And as of this video, I've put in over 3,500 miles on these stock tires, and they still have, you know, what looks to be a good amount of life in them. The beautiful thing is, under that heavy braking, I never experienced a lockup on the tires. All in all, man, this bike is coming with a pretty good set of tires from the factory. The rear suspension is a link type monocross suspension. You know, it offers adjustment for spring preload and rebound dampening, and you got 5.1 inches of travel. On the front, you got 5.1 inch travel. It offers a higher level of tuning. It's going to support adjustments for spring preload, rebound dampening, and compression dampening, and it sits on an inverted fork. This suspension really does let you dial in custom settings for multiple applications, such as commuting to work for comfort, sporty weekend riding across twisty mountain passes, or even track racing. I think it's a very suitable package for a daily bike that does not really sacrifice on performance. The braking system doesn't leave too much to be desired. The braking lever offers a position adjustment knob, and it is paired with a Brembo master cylinder. That's a win. But this is also one place where I wish Yamaha would have stayed consistent. I can definitely feel the quality and feedback and control on the front brake in a way that is just non-existent on the rear brake. I'm not saying that the rear brake is not good or that it's garbage. I'm just saying that you really do feel the Brembo quality when using the front brake. Now, we got dual 298mm rotors on the front with a drill design for heat management. We got a single 245mm drill rotor in the rear. The Yamaha is pushing a 689cc liquid cooled twin cylinder, and it's got Yamaha's CP2 engine setup. That's the same engine setup from the MT-07, and that CP2 just means cross plane 270-degree cranks. I'm gonna get into why I think that's good later. The quick shifter is optional, but it does not come standard on the bike. So if you want that, you're gonna have to get that. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna have to get that. You're looking at an extra charge. And really, specs are just a bunch of numbers on the sheet. So let's talk about some real world performance. Alright, while using this R7 in the city, one of the first things I enjoyed right off the bat was the slim profile. This is one of the slimmest bikes in the R series, definitely slimmer than an R6 and an R1. This made lane splitting easy and gave me a boost in confidence that I think a lot of newer riders are gonna need when moving to a more powerful bike. Now the frame and the slim profile of this bike, it really lets you flick in and out quickly. Just take a look at how flickable this thing is as I dodge this car that's trying to kill me in the city right here. The slim and lightweight profile also helps with managing gas usage. On a day when I ride the R7 like a proper bike, I was easily getting 42 miles to the gallon, you know, but if I became gas focused, I could easily manage over 52. Here's the crazy thing. I never cruised this bike in 5th or 6th. I mostly stayed in 4th with the very, and I mean very occasional bump to 5th. So, you know, I bet if I really tried, I could probably even get better gas mileage. Now, let's talk about braking in the city. Braking in the city was excellent. I I never felt like I was experiencing brake pad fade, and everything stopped nice and smooth. Braking feedback is excellent, and the bike was never at its limit when I was braking in the city. Now, I don't want to say it was perfect in the city, but it was extremely close. And keep that in mind, that's in the city, because I'm gonna tell you a little bit more about that later. Now, also keep in mind, I do have the suspension tuned properly, so if you want similar performance from an R7, I do recommend you getting a proper tune. And if you want a proper tune, you know, you can just click the link in the description and I'll get you hooked up. I did try a 0 to 60 test to get a feel for how this bike takes off in the city, and here's what I found. The acceleration in the city is powerful enough to be a monster in the city and really control the traffic when you're taking off from a stoplight. If you throw in the fact that you have a linear torque response, you know, something that offers a predictable and repeatable throttle experience, you really start to see the argument for the R7 in the city over something like an R6. And this is what could be a game changer for someone looking to have a bike that offers a lot of serious fun without a lot of serious surprises. Engine temperature does well in the city too, but I find that it's like really dynamic. Here's what I mean. If I'm sitting at the light, the temperature jumps up rapidly, like faster than any other bike I've used or tested. But it also drops really quickly as soon as you get moving. That temperature can easily drop from like 220 to 176 in like 30 seconds. And I think that it does this because it is M-shaped scoop at the front that forces cool air over and over the engine. Now, overall, the heat management is well designed, and I think Yamaha did a great job here. In the city, the R7, you know, lightweight and slim profile combined with the excellent takeoff and linear torque response, I believe make this bike a great daily for work. The positioning of the bike did not leave me sore unless I rode aggressively for over an hour. But keep in mind, this is still a sports bike, and it has a rider triangle that is meant for you to dig in and get low. So it is not the most comfortable for prolonged riding. So if you're looking for something that'll work for you for commuting to work, I would give it a 7 out of 10 for the city riding. Now let's talk about this thing on the highway. On the highway, the R7 offers great pulling power for getting out of sticky situations or just plain old breaking the law, paying a hefty fine and putting your life in danger. Now this bike does offer the feeling of drop a gear and disappear. This is where the R7 really shines because it's so flexible. That linear torque response does not mean boring. Don't get it confused. When I was testing the highway pulling power, two things really stood out to me about the character of the R7. The first notable mention is if you are accelerating smooth, you can almost feel no torque and you can hit high speeds fast. It kind of reminds me of a BMW where you can slightly give it some gas and find your speed creeping up really fast, but you don't feel it. You don't recognize how fast you're going until you check the dash. That's how it is on this R7. But on the other hand, if you really open it up, you do feel that torque kicking like the police raiding a drug house, and you can watch those speeds climb real fast, just like a Superbike should. I think it's almost like a controllable Dr. Jekyll and Hyde, and I think this is what makes the R7 special. It's a really controllable machine that is not boring, but still manageable, and I think it's perfect, you know, for a beginner rider or a new rider that's really looking to step up to something more powerful. Hitting high speeds on this R7 offers a great experience, and the engine vibration is almost non-existent, as it's easy to hit 80 to 90 miles an hour without having to go over 6,500 RPMs. And in my opinion, you really don't feel that vibration on the bike until you hit about 8,500 RPMs. And even then, when you hit that 8,500, it's not that bad. Maybe it's this CP2, you know what I'm saying, 270-degree crank setup that they got going on right here, but it's definitely minimal vibration. And I think that this is an overlooked area, but it is extremely important. Here's why. First, it reduces the fatigue on the bike and lets you ride longer. Second, it creates a safer ride, especially for those newer riders, because that mirror vibration doesn't exist, and it lets you check that rear mirror and lane switch more easily with more confidence. I think beginners will find the roll-on manageable and unsurprising if they're in gears 4, 5, or 6, but more experienced riders who still want to push this bike, get that Superbike feel, you know, get that adrenaline rush and maybe catch a heart attack on the bike. If you are in second gear or third gear, you know, and you do that roll on, you're going to be right in that sweet spot to tap that 72 horsepower and 50 foot-pounds of torque. Even though this thing performs really well on the highway, I will admit there are a few times where I felt like the response was just kind of lacking in the higher band range of the RPMs. Therefore, for the highway riding, I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. It'll be nicer to maybe have a little bit more, torque at the high end, but we can't have it all, right? Now, let's talk about how this thing performs in the twisties. Been on this channel for a bit, that's my favorite thing, and I love it because when the road gets tight and windy, don't get it twisted. The R7 handles twists like a real Superbike. In fact, I'll be real with you, the bottom line is this setup works. While pushing the bike in the twisty mountain passes, you really push a bike because you're having to use so many features in combination to perform. You need brakes to slow down as fast curves come out of nowhere. You need suspension to handle weight transfer correctly to aid in slowing the bike down. You need it to deal with weight transfer as you accelerate out of corners. Tires, they get loaded and deloaded, and they need to stick to the ground and stay sticky as you accelerate out of tight turns. When hitting the twisties on this R7, man, this bike really performed. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm gonna have to give it a strong 8. Acceleration is amazing, and I get a lot of control over my level of riding with this bike. If I wanna poop my pants, all I gotta do is put it in gears 2 and 3, play up in those 2 gears, and I can really push the limits of what this bike offers as a complete package. If I want a more subdued ride, with the occasional burst of fun, I can, ride in gear 3 the whole time and just flex between 3,500 and 9,000 RPMs. And now I have a more dynamic ride just in 1 gear in the twisties. I never needed to hit fourth in the twisties, and I think it did really well. Let's talk about the suspension in the twisties. As far as the suspension is concerned, I don't have anything bad to say. Keep in mind, I do have this tuned for sportier riding, and I do run 2 different tire pressure setups. And this suspension, man, it offers a predictable, capable, and fun setup. I'm a heavier guy, and so I think it's good because this suspension handles my weight transfer like a champ. Loading the front tire without bottoming out during hard braking. Check, it did that. Dealing with hard acceleration without the front end jumping up too high. Check, it did that. Riding on the suspension without the rear compressing too much when I accelerate hard. Check, it did that. Offering great feedback during extreme lean angles. Check, man, it did that. Creating the perfect blend of being soft enough to not bounce, but stiff enough to ride like I'm Rossi. Well, halfway check, because I can't ride like Rossi. Now, I mean, honestly, I really don't know what else I need. I don't even know what else I need to say about the suspension because it's solid. There is nothing to say about this suspension except for that it's really, really good. Keep in mind, if you want yours tuned, go and click that link in the description. I'll get you hooked up. Now, cornering on the R7 in the twisties. Man, this R7 plays the corner better than a drug dealer. Cornering on this bike is the best that I have ever experienced. I am not mincing words here. I am not exaggerating. This bike gets into corners like a scalpel. KTM, what do you have to say about that? Don't you have a bike nicknamed the Scalpel? You need to go and get that to the R7. I'm not kidding. You can literally look at a line. You can just push and lean and it falls so effortlessly. It's really hard to explain how good this bike is at cornering. It's not just how well it enters a corner, it's also really good at just finding that lean angle that you are intending in your mind and just planting right there and holding. The best way I could explain how well it corners, is this is the first bike that I've ridden where I said, man, I need another corner. I need a tougher corner. I need a more difficult corner. That corner there, man, that wasn't enough. You really feel like you're not pushing this bike to the limits of cornering. But then you look at your tires and you see this. Look at that. That's straight up amazing. That's when you realize this bike is actually killing the corners. I dare another manufacturer to send me a bike that corners better. No, seriously, I dare you. I mean, I am trying to get sponsored, so don't hate on my shameless plug there. The only thing that makes this bike better in the corners is multiple corners that change direction. because the flickability of this bike is simply amazing. You already saw how I dodged that car earlier. This is what I would say is the strongest strength of the bike. The cornering, flickability, and responsiveness of this R7. The responsiveness, man, I might just say it's perfect. And the reason I say that is you can just push and it just goes. No lag, it does not overshoot, it does not undershoot. It's like it reads your thoughts and reaches the exact lean angle just as fast and as smooth or aggressive as you intended. This is where the R7 really shines. This is why it is a superbike, and it really does show here. Engine braking response is perfect, especially for a new rider who wants to grow in their ability in the corner. It's kind of aggressive, but that's what you need if you want to brake later in corners, which is what you would be doing if you're riding a superbike at a higher level. You don't buy a superbike just to go fast. You also want to push your limits by braking later and setting up corners. The engine braking on the R7 instills confidence by being aggressive enough to make up for any braking that you might do just a little too late. If you pair that with a great suspension and the aggressive engine braking, which gives you a bike that does not shift the weight of the bike forward, now you're working with something that's really good for the weekend warrior who wants a super bike that is still manageable in the city. I think it's great. This is where I started to feel some of the limits of the bike. I'm gonna get into some of the other features of it in the twisties, and it's why I only give it an 8 out of 10 in the twisties. If it didn't have these issues, it might have gotten a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10, but it got an 8 out of 10, and here's why. First, the tires. Man, there's times when I could feel the rear tires slip. Yeah, it's slightly on aggressive corners. It's a small slip, but it's a quick slip, but it's still a slip. And I'm sure, that can easily be fixed, with a more performance-based tire. And if I'm being real, I can't 100% attribute every slip to the tire. I could have hit a rock, I could have hit a twig, but I'm sure in some cases, it's really the tire just being pushed to the limit. And I do ride during hot temperatures. I did keep that in mind. So I feel like the tire could have performed a little bit better. Now, second, the brakes. Remember how I said the brakes were really good in the city? Well, in the twisties, not so much. I do find that the brakes begin to fade after the repeated braking and cornering that you're gonna, experience in the twisties. The brake fade is enough to actually make me change my corner setup. And I noticed that I had to scrub speed earlier and earlier the more that I rode. I had to rely more on that aggressive engine braking, and I had to apply braking pressure longer and harder. It seems like a small thing, but when it takes you out of your riding groove in the twisties, and you have to become more conscious about cornering, it really does leave a little bit more to be desired from the brakes. Throw in the fact that the way the front brake is gonna respond, compared to the rear brake, because the front brake has that Brembo master cylinder, it does throw off the overall experience and leave a little bit, to be desired. So when I look at everything that this bike does, overall, it gets a strong 8 out of 10 for just overall performance, looks, design, as a complete package. So is the R7 a super bike? Heck yeah, in my opinion it is. And I think we place too many labels on things and get caught up in the past. You can't limit a superbike to something as simple as 4 cylinders only. I think what makes a bike perform is how well does it perform as a complete package. And when I look at what you're getting in terms of power, suspension, handling, cornering, responsiveness, aerodynamics, and power to weight ratio, it becomes really hard to say this is not a superbike. I want to know what you think. Do you agree or disagree? Let's talk about it. Be nice in the comments. Don't hurt my feelings telling me I'm black, I'm never going to amount to anything. Let me know what you think. Do you feel that the R7 is a superbike or is it not?